I said these 13 words, and within 24 hours, everything I had was gone. Strange how fast a life can fall apart. I'm 73 now, and I've had decades to think about that day. Not the whole year, not the whole month, just that one day. Because if I'm being honest with you, my life didn't collapse slowly, didn't fade, snap. And the worst part, I was the one who pulled the trigger. Back in 1991, I was 38 years old. I had what most people would call a good life. Steady job, a husband who trusted me, kids who looked up to me, a routine that made everything feel stable. From the outside there was nothing wrong, but inside, I felt like I was living someone else's life. And I had been pretending for so long, I didn't even remember when it started. That kind of feeling doesn't explode right away. It sits quietly. It builds pressure in places nobody else can see. Until one day, something small happens. Conversation, question, a moment that should have passed like any other. But instead, it opened something in me I had kept buried for years. And before I could stop myself, I said 13 words. And by the next morning, everything I had built was gone. If you had met me back then, you wouldn't have seen anything wrong. That's the part that still gets me. At 38, I had built what most people spend their entire lives chasing. I managed a distribution warehouse just outside the city. Nothing fancy but steady, reliable, the kind of job that paid the bills on time and didn't keep you up at night. I drove the same car every day, parked in the same spot, ate lunch at the same hour. Routine, predictable. At home things looked even better. A husband who believed in me. Kids who ran to the door when I got back from work. Weekends filled with errands, small talk, and the kind of quiet moments people later call the good old days. From the outside, it worked. Everything worked. And that's what made it so dangerous. Because when your life looks right, no one asks questions. Not your friends. Not your family. Not even you. But there were moments, small ones, that didn't fit the picture. Like sitting at the dinner table listening to laughter, and feeling like I was watching it happen instead of being part of it. Or driving home from work and realizing I couldn't remember a single thing I'd thought about during the entire day. Not one. It was like I was there, but not really there. Like I had slowly disappeared into the life I built. And nobody, not even me, noticed it happening. The strange thing about that kind of emptiness is, it doesn't announce itself. There's no warning sign. No moment where everything suddenly feels wrong. Just settles in, quietly, like background noise you don't notice, until the room goes silent. First it was easy to ignore. I had responsibilities, people counting on me, a schedule that didn't leave much room for thinking too deeply about anything. And that was the trick. As long as I stayed busy, I didn't have to feel it. So I stayed busy. Longer hours at work. Extra shifts when they needed coverage. Fixing things around the house that didn't really need fixing. Anything to avoid sitting still. Because the moment I did, crept back in. That feeling that something wasn't right. Not wrong enough to panic. Just wrong enough to linger. There were nights I'd lie awake next to my husband, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand why I felt so disconnected from a life that, on paper, should have made me happy. Nothing was broken. That's what made it so confusing. No major problems. No big fights. No crisis. Just silence. Inside. And over time, that silence started turning into something heavier. Not sadness. Not anger. Something harder to name. It felt like I was slowly becoming a spectator in my own life, watching the days pass, watching conversations happen, watching myself respond the way I was supposed to, without ever really feeling present in any of it. And the worst part, I got used to it. That's how it traps you. You adjust, you normalize it, but pressure doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It builds quietly in the background, and eventually starts looking for a way out. It wasn't a big day. That's what I remember most. No argument waiting to happen. No tension in the air. No sign that anything was about to go wrong. Just an ordinary evening. I got home around the same time I always did. Dropped my keys in the same place. Took off my shoes by the door. The house smelled like dinner. Voices from the living room. Television low in the background. Everything exactly the way it had been 100 times before. And for a moment, I thought maybe I had imagined all of it. That feeling. That distance. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe this was normal. I walked in, said hello, sat down. Simple things. Familiar things. But then, something small shifted. Not outside. Inside. It started during a conversation. Nothing serious at first. Just one of those everyday talks. Plans, responsibilities. Things that needed to be handled. The kind of conversation you don't even remember later. Except this time. Couldn't follow it. And then came a question. Simple one. The kind that should have taken 2 seconds to answer. But I didn't answer it. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't know how to. There was a pause. Short but noticeable. And in that pause, something shifted again. The room felt different. Heavier. Like the air had changed. I could feel it building. That pressure I had been holding down for years. Pushing its way up. Faster than I could control. I should have stopped. I should have said anything else. Changed the subject. Walked away. Let the moment pass. Like every other moment before it. But I didn't. Because something in me was tired of pretending. And before I could think it through, before I could measure the damage, I opened my mouth and let the truth come out. There's a moment, right before you say something you can't take back, where time feels like it slows down. You can feel it coming. Like standing at the edge of something, knowing if you take one more step, there's no turning around. Felt it. That split second where I could have stopped. Could have swallowed it. Could have said something safer. Something expected. But I didn't. Because the truth had been sitting in me for too long. And it didn't want to stay quiet anymore. So I said it. I don't even know who I am anymore living this life. 13 words. That was it. No shouting. No anger. Just honesty. Raw and unfiltered. And the moment they left my mouth, I knew. Not because of what I said, but because of what followed. Silence. Not the normal kind. This was different. Heavy. Ill. Like everything had just stopped to process what had been said. I remember looking up and seeing it. The confusion first, then the hurt, and underneath it, something worse. Recognition. Because those words didn't come out of nowhere. They meant something. And the person sitting across from me knew it. And just like that, everything started to change. Nothing exploded right away. That would have been easier to understand. No shouting. No slam doors. No dramatic ending to the night. Just distance. We sat there for a while after I said it. Same room, same space. But it didn't feel the same anymore. Felt like something invisible had moved between us. And neither of us knew how to reach across it. The conversation tried to continue. Few words here and there. But it wasn't really a conversation anymore. It was careful, measured, like every sentence had to pass through something before it could be spoken. That night we went to bed like we always did. Same routine, same side of the bed. But I don't think either of us slept. I remember staring into the dark, replaying those 13 words over and over again, trying to reshape them, soften them, turn them into something less damaging. But no matter how many times I went through it, they stayed exactly the same. And the silence next to me felt louder than anything I had said. Morning came too quickly. And with it, the reality of what had changed. It was subtle at first. The way he moved around the house. The way he avoided looking at me. For too long. The absence of small normal things. You don't notice until they're gone. There were questions now. Not loud ones, but heavy ones. And the more I talked, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about one sentence. It was about years. Years of distance. I didn't even realize I was creating. By the time the day was ending, the life I thought I was holding together was already starting to come apart. After that first day, things didn't end all at once. They changed. Quietly. But completely. We still spoke. Still moved through the same spaces. Still followed the routines we had built over the years. But something was missing. And once you notice something is missing, you can't unnotice it. Showed up in small ways. The conversations got shorter. The pauses got longer. The laughter, when it came, felt forced. Like we were both trying to hold on to something we could already feel slipping away. I told myself it would settle. That time would smooth it out. That we'd find a way back to normal. But the truth is, there was no normal left to go back to. Because what I had said had changed how everything was seen. Every memory. Every quiet evening. Every time I said I'm fine. When I wasn't. It all started to look different. And I could see it in his eyes. Not anger. It was something else. Distance. Like he was standing a few steps back now. Trying to figure out who I really was. And for the first time, I didn't have an answer for him. Or for myself. That was the hardest part. Being alone. Without actually being alone. Sitting in the same room. And feeling like a stranger in it. I started noticing things I had ignored for years. How little of myself I had actually shared. How much of my life had been automatic. And slowly, regret started to creep in. Not just for what I said, but for how long it took me to say anything at all. By the end of that week, I understood something I hadn't before. I wasn't just dealing with the consequences of what I said. I was dealing with the consequences of everything I hadn't said for years. Now, there was no avoiding it anymore. I didn't go looking for answers. That point, I wasn't even sure what the questions were anymore. I just knew things couldn't stay the way they were. So I started spending more time outside. Not for any big reason. Just to get out of the house. To breathe. And think. If thinking was even possible. Most days I'd drive. Without a destination. Park somewhere quiet. Sit longer than I needed to. That's how it started. And that's how I ran into her. Martha. I had seen her around before. One of those familiar faces. From the neighborhood. A wave across the street. Nothing more. Older than me. By a good stretch. The kind of woman who moved slowly, but never seemed in a hurry. That day, I was standing near a small gas station, staring at nothing in particular, when she walked up beside me. Didn't say hello right away. Just stood there for a second, like she was reading something I didn't realize was visible. Then she said, "You look like a woman carrying something." She never put down. That Saturday, before the sun was fully up, I found myself standing by a quiet stretch of water, holding a cup of coffee. I didn't remember pouring. We didn't talk much at first. Just stood there, watching the water move, listening to nothing. And after a while, she started talking. Not about me. About herself. About how she had spent most of her life being exactly what people needed her to be. And how one day, she realized she didn't know who she was outside of that. I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Because for the first time, since everything started falling apart, I wasn't trying to fix it. I was just listening. And somewhere, in the middle of that quiet morning, felt something shift. Not a solution. Not clarity. Just the sense that maybe I wasn't the only one who had gotten this far without really knowing herself. And maybe that meant it wasn't too late to figure it out. Martha never gave me a plan. No steps. No rules. No speech about fixing my life. She just asked questions. Simple ones. The kind you don't expect to struggle with until you do. One morning, standing by the water, she asked me, "What do you do when no one needs anything from you?" I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't have one. That question stayed with me. So I started small. Not because I believed it would change anything, but because I didn't know what else to do. There was a community board near the grocery store. One flyer caught my eye. Pottery class, Tuesday evenings. I stood there longer than I needed to, then wrote down the number. The first night I went, I almost turned back. Didn't know anyone. Didn't know what I was doing. Felt out of place the moment I walked in. And I was terrible. The first bowl I made, barely held together, looked like it had been shaped in a hurry by someone who didn't know how to shape anything. But something about it kept me there for those 2 hours. Nothing else mattered. Not the conversations waiting at home. Not the tension. Not the questions I couldn't answer. Just the work in front of me. And for the first time in a long time, felt present. Not completely. Not perfectly. But enough to notice the difference. So I kept going. And slowly, something started to return. Not happiness. Not all at once. But awareness. A sense that I was actually inside my own life again, instead of watching it from somewhere outside. Maybe I hadn't lost everything. Maybe I had just never built it in the first place. Took me a long time to understand what really happened that day. For years, I told myself the same story, that I said the wrong thing, the wrong time, in the worst possible way. That those 13 words were the reason everything fell apart. It was an easy explanation. Simple, clean, and completely wrong. Because the truth is, those words didn't destroy anything. They revealed it. They pulled something into the light that had been sitting in the dark for years. Something I had ignored, avoided, buried under routine and responsibility. I thought I lost everything in 24 hours. But when I look back now, can see that what I really lost was the illusion that everything was fine. And once that illusion breaks, you don't get to put it back together. You either face what's underneath, or you spend the rest of your life pretending you didn't see it. If I hadn't said those words that day, I would have kept living the same life, slowly disappearing, without ever noticing it happening. And that would have cost me far more than what I lost, because losing everything all at once forces you to see the worst thing that can happen isn't losing everything in one day. It's spending your entire life holding on to something that was never truly yours.